The IMSA Vintage cars may not have actually raced at Le Mans, but the regulars have made this place a staple on the schedule. Much like the late 80s and early 90s, danger still abounds with these cars tackling this track. Let's see who can come away with a win in France as we get ready to watch round 4 of the IMSA Vintage series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Bradley Cooper, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. In case you've been living under a rock and haven't been introduced to Le Mans yet, let's go to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The two turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tertre Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why. Well, as you can see, this is quite a big track to handle. There is a lot of straight line portions, Adam, so I'm expecting a lot of draft racing.
Absolutely, Joe. The full circuit at Le Mans has rarely been used actually in the IMSA Vintage series. They usually do the classic layout, but the chaotic nature of the multi-class is why this has rarely been used. But they've accepted the challenge this season. The Nissans will feel the most at home here today, boasting downforce and power levels similar to the GTP cars of today, but their biggest struggles will be the curbs at every corner, as running minimum rear wing for the speed means an unstable and unruly back end on the throttle, which can lead to significant slippage on the bumpy curbs. The Audis will struggle a little bit more, especially through the apex of the Mulsanne chicanes and through the latter half of the course. The GTO's infamous understeer will come heavily into play, as the usual toe-out method of stabilizing the front end results in too much mechanical slip and tire wear on the long straights. Multiclass here only happens 2 or 3 times maximum, so it's crucial for both classes to navigate it as quickly and efficiently as I can. The Nissans don't want to lose any time to the slower Audis through the center of the corners, and the Audis don't want to lose their turn into the apex to the Nissans, so we'll likely see some comings together throughout the race as both classes joust for the ideal line in order to not lose time. With 18 laps on the board for the Nissans and pit stops likely during the race for both classes, there's a lot to do for both drivers and us fans as far as keeping track of things during this race, Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get a little bit mixed up, I'm certain, out there. Could be fascinating to watch, but let's not forget that there is a championship as well for this series, starting with the GTPs up at the top of them. It is Theodore Burns, interestingly, who is leading this championship. Valenteus has been very quick, but he is not here today. So he's going to slip back down once again, even though when he does arrive, he usually just stomps the field. Watch out for Aaron Humphrey back there in third position, because at times he is able to pull good finishes, and I believe he might still be looking for his first win. But he definitely racks up the points over the course of the season. But there's always other fast drivers that are willing to snatch those valuable points away. We have the GTO class as well. How's that one sitting, Adam?
Yeah, and Yuka Leskola leads the GTO class over Noah Lundberg. Lundberg has yet to best Yuka Leskola on track unless Leskola has a wreck or a bad day. So Lundberg still has that hurdle to jump in order to get ahead of Leskola in the point standings. Ian Haycox is about 33 points back and in a tight battle with Cam Porter and Doug Cloud for that last step on the rostrum. Then we have Arturas Kundalis in a pretty much 5-way fight with David Lehman, Mickey Friesen, Andrea Schuster, and Esko Litaniemi going into round 4 this season, Joe.
As for today's race itself, it's going to be a little bit different than what we typically see in this series. It is done by laps instead of by time. So it's 18 laps, which means this is going to be their endurance race today. And they have open setups as always, but with it being Le Mans, as you can expect, everybody's going to be trying to crank the wing as far down as they can go. They don't have a spare car to help them. And with some places, in fact, much of the track having barriers very close to the edge, it's going to be difficult to get away without damage if you have a mishap out there. Drive-through penalty at 17 incidents and a DQ at 25. While there is lots of paved runoff, many of those areas actually don't count as an incident point. It's more the slowdown penalties that you have to watch out for here today. Going to be fascinating without a doubt. And we've got most of the cars with at least a single lap in. We're still waiting for the second lap. But if you didn't start it right away, Adam, there's a good chance you might make it a second time around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard to get both of the qualifying laps in here at Le Mans, with laps being in the 3:24 and a half range for our current provisional pole sitter, Tuomas Mustonen. It's going to be a real challenge for these drivers to get that second lap done. Laus Olsen, in fact, is just going through the second of the Mulsanne chicanes, and he's got a long way to go before he can get that lap done. I can report that the Audis have all gotten their first laps done, and pretty much most of them have bailed out. Andreas Schuster currently holds provisional pole position. I'm not seeing Jukka Leskala here today, Joe, so this is a good opportunity for Noah Lundberg, currently in provisional fourth position, to gain some points.
I do see Yuko in the entry list, but he hasn't set a time. So he's going to... Wow, he's going to have to start from the back.
That's going to be a hard fight for him, but I would say that Le Mans is usually good for the draft, but with those two Mulsanne chicanes breaking it up, that's going to be interesting. Jukka Leskala out there to get some more practice laps. We know this is not his strongest track as far as qualifying is concerned, and it's a challenge for him to battle for the lead because of that draft that we talked about, but man, that's a real surprise.
Also, just saw Alex Van de Sant flash across the line. He puts himself up to third. That was critical for him because his first lap also got deleted. So now we watch Jukka Leskala down into the first turn, although he is definitely well past a time that he could get around to set an actual marker on the board. I do see Laus Olsen trying to dash around for a second lap. He's getting close. He's currently sitting in 12th, but this is Heitor Sintes Galindo, multiple-time champion here in the IMSA Vintage Series, currently sitting at 10th, but he's also one that has said that qualifying not usually his strong point.
But that being said, he does usually have decent races, but Le Mans really challenging. Wow, he dives it very deep into the entry chicanes there, and now through the final section, he's going to track out onto that gravel, and that's going to do it for his lap, unfortunately. He parks it before the line as if to signal his frustration. But that's Heitor Sintes Galindo, only in 10th position. He gets bested by Arturas Kundelis, actually, who's driving the GTP today, and Fabian Jungbluth able to finish a time and get up into 7th position.
Wow, interesting stuff there. The way that kind of shook around there at the very end. Timothy Reed up to P2, and it looks like with just a few seconds left, I think that is pretty much it for anybody who can set a time. So why don't we go through our starting order for this one and see how they stack up? Because it is Tuomas Mustonen who has come back after showing great pace last time out and starting on the pole position. Timothy Reed will be in P2, and then Alexander Van de Sant will start from third. Jack David Spickett will be P4, followed by Farron Grau in the 5th spot. Aaron Humphrey will be in P6, and Fabian Jungbluth starts in 7th today. Oye Zamaloa puts it as high as 8th, with Will Schwabauer in the 9th spot and Jack Wells rounding out your top 10. From there, second slide sees Fernando Serrato starting in 11th. Arturas Kundelis puts it into 12th as Heitor Sintes Galindo eventually gets slid back to 13th. Xavier Sanchez is P14 and Laus Olsen 15th. On his outside, it's going to be Javier Del Olmo, a bit far down for him. Not sure what's going on there. Brennan Lim starts from 17th position, followed by Matthias Hovdal in 18th. and Anders Sandberg 19th. Henrik Kamara will begin in 20th. Just one more slide of our GTPs. It is Alex Campbell starting in 21st. And Yo-Yo Ortiz starting 22nd. Malte Schneider will be 23rd. Then it's Martin Krajcik all the way down in 24th. Matt Malone joins us. He'll be driving from 25th on the grid at the start. Jesus Cabal will start in 26th, and Gerard Boldu 27th. Then you've got Shady Ahmad and Carlos Fonseca without lap times at the back of that field. Adam?
The GTOs have Andreas Schuster on pole position with Johan Van Hixie in the second position next to him. Row 3 goes to Esko Letaniemi and Noel Lundberg in third and fourth, with Mickey Friesen starting off in fifth on row 3 next to Doug Cloud. Franco Scurry starts off row 7 with Ian Haycox next to him, and Josh Brain and Emerson Gaudin round out your top 10 for the starting positions. They only have 3 more left to go. It's Miguel Alcalde who sets our final qualifying time, and Yuko Leskala and Kevin Parrish did not set qualifying times. That'll be 13 Audis, 29 Nissans, for a total of 43 drivers.
Well, it seems like Schuster himself is shocked that he's been able to go up to the front, as the pace car is now leading them on the partial pace lap up towards the Porsche curves. And Schuster, we'll see if he's comfortable once they get going. But, I mean, one lap pace doesn't lie around here. There's nobody to draft off of in the way that iRacing does it.
No, absolutely. So it's going to be a real challenge for him to get going. It's going to be a hard battle for all of the drivers out there today, with the multi-class mixing it up for sure. So I'm very interested to see how Tuomas Mustonen takes this from pole position. We haven't seen Tuomas show up, I don't believe, ever in this series. So this is a new face at the front of the field, battling with most of, in fact, entirely series regulars, all the way down to 7th in Fabian Newbluth. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I mentioned Aaron Humphrey. I checked. He does not have a win to his name yet. He has more than 50 starts, though, in the IMSA Vintage Series. So it definitely could be a good chance for him here today, starting up amongst the top 6. Watch out for JDS, Jack David Spickett, starting from 4th. Of course, Mustonen has come back, and as we saw last week, is very, very fast. So I wouldn't put it against him being one to try and vie for it. But Timothy Reed in there, former champion in this series, he could snatch this from both of them if he has a decent enough day. Here we go. Pace car getting ready to peel off just before the final part of the Ford chicane, giving control over to Mustonen. They have elected to do a single file start in this series to help that out. And there is the green flag as Mustonen dashes away down towards the Dunlop curve and the Dunlop chicane. They'll hit the bridge for the first time. Let's see who is able to get through this one clean. It is always a source of frustration as the cars have to slow up immediately at the start of the lap, but the single file seems to have done the trick, Adam, as it's very orderly. Let's go to the GTOs.
A spinner in the GTOs. Franco Scurry almost hits the inside wall on the start, but he's able to keep going. You see this big pack in the back. They were too wide, actually, through the chicanes. Up at the front of the field, though, Andreas Schuster still leads over Joran Van Hixie and Esko Letaniemi. Yuko Leskala has already made up 2 positions up to 11th spot.
Let's go back again to see what he can do. He's not doing the Triple Crown, though, this weekend. He was not in the Grand Prix Legends race, but he's certainly putting some pressure on Joram up there ahead of him at the front of the GTO field. But now that ever-critical run through Tertre Rouge. Let's see who's got the launch to head down the long Mulsanne Straight.
So it looks like Alexander Vandersand had a slowdown in the GTPs. He goes from all the way up in 3rd position down to 9th spot, unfortunately, so he's fallen back of the field. Up at the front of the Audis, it's still Andreas Schuster leading with that clear track ahead of him, but he's got the draft train hooked up. It's Joran Van Hixie, Esko Letaniemi, and Noah Lundberg who are in tow, and then they've got Mickey Friesen about 8/10 back, but still in the tow himself, gaining quickly, and it's a battle in the background between Franco Scurry and Ian Haycox as they're duking it out for 7th.
Yeah, it looks like Scurry is going to be able to sneak by there, and Ian Haycox will slot in behind. So just a single position change. You're going to see a lot of that here today, so don't be too surprised if we mention a lot of switching around and act like it's not a big deal, because it probably won't be a big deal until we get down to the last lap.
I feel like the leaders in the GTPs are choosing to draft. Timothy Reed deciding to stay behind Mustonen as they go through the Mulsanne hairpin at the end of the straight. Jack David Spickett lost third position to Farron Grau and Aaron Humphrey. And it looks like there's been some position changes also. Mickey Friesen falling back in the Audis. So a lot of changes of positions here as we see that's Aaron Humphrey poking his nose out on Jack David Spickett as they're trying to duke it out with Farron Grau. Humphrey's going to get held up in that paddle, and so that's Jack David Spickett, JDS, backing out of it a little bit to make sure he doesn't cause contact.
Farron Grau holds onto the podium position for now as they come through the Indianapolis corner and into Arnage, a little bit wide ahead of them by the leader of Mustonen. Got to be careful that he does not get himself a slowdown on some of these corner exits. And there you can see the difference between those top two and the rest of the field still giving chase.
Timothy Reed very close in behind Mustonen, but he's not looking for any sort of move right now. It's important to note that these GTPs usually try and put a little bit of too few of fuel into their cars when they start this race. They want to be under-fueled to begin this race, and so I think we'll see Timothy Reed try and just cling to the back of Mustonen and hang out over the course of this race. Looks like Alec Campbell's had a problem. He's around at the beginning of the Porsche curves, and with the Audis coming up 20 seconds behind, he's got some pressure coming up behind him, and he's just trying to survive. That's major left side damage for him, Joe.
So he's hit something or someone. I think it may have been Martin Krajcik here, as we see on the replay. Oh, a miscommunication. Both of them clatter into the Armco hard.
Absolutely, and it's good of Alec to stay out of the racing line. He's able to keep going, and unfortunately for him, that's going to be some major damage. Neither him or Krajcik have elected to take to the pits this lap, so it's going to be interesting. But he gets past Martin Krajcik, who is choosing to go into the pits actually. So Krajcik's going to go to the pits after that contact.
Krajcik has to. He's got a meatball flag, so he must take repairs to be able to get back onto the circuit without incurring the wrath of the stewards after about 4 laps where they would force him off the track. Meanwhile, Andreas Schuster, who has a single win in the IMSA Vintage Series to his name, is going to try and add to it today. And he has been leading, but Vic Van Hixie has been hanging on to the back, and Esko Letniemi still sits in third.
2 more slowdowns to talk about in the GTPs. Aaron Humphrey and Sintes Galindo both had slowdowns in the GTPs, so they're off the field. There's Martin Krajcik in the pits from his damage, still getting it repaired, unfortunately. The mid-pack of the GTP seems to be quite bundled together as Aaron Humphrey takes another slowdown at the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. Seeing a lot of GTPs falling afoul of those slowdowns that come at the inside of the hairpins, Joe. They're taking a little bit too much brake into the corner.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there's some people who are struggling.
Big wreck, sorry. Shady Ahmad and it looks like it's Malte Schneider have had a wreck at the first Mulsanne chicane. They were battling for 17th and 18th positions and have spun each other out there, I believe.
All right, let's see how this one happened. Ooh, hard to tell from that angle if they made any sort of contact, but I'm seeing a little bit of damage on the car, so I suspect there was. Here we go. We'll get a different look at it. That is the number 12 just in front.
Yeah, it's Malte Schneider, and it looks like he just takes it. He takes a little bit too much inside curve, gets those left rear tire upset, and as he applies the power, the car just wheel hops and slides out, and then he was hit by Shady Ahmad, who was just trying to go through the corner there. So unfortunate moment for Shady and unfortunate mistake for Malte.
Yeah, just bad timing on his part as we come back live and they break down into the Mulsanne hairpin, and now Shady goes completely off the track. Meanwhile, Del Olmo is in a little bit of a battle for 18th, and looks like he is going to back out of it in his fight with Aitor Sintes Galindo. Former champions, so well, I guess current reigning champion for Javier Del Olmo, both fighting against one another, but for positions that are way far down, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I'm honestly very surprised at Aitor Sintes Galindo and Javier Del Olmo, how far back in the pack they are. Especially Javier, he's falling off the back of Aitor Sintes Galindo just after being passed, so it's almost like he has some underside damage that he's worried about, or he's trying to save a bunch of fuel and maybe underfill the car too much, but it's really surprising to see how far off the pace he is right now, down at 18th. He is a full 15 seconds behind our leader of Tuomas Mustonen, so that's a real surprise.
big lift here, I can tell from everybody trailing behind, except it looks like fourth place, or what is now second place, actually, Noel Lundberg. And no wonder, since he is in a fight for a championship here. He has passed a number of cars and moves up to the top two. But the train, look at that. That goes all the way down to Ian Haycock's in sixth place.
Absolutely. This train of Audis we're going to expect to see for the rest of the day, so long as nobody makes a big mistake or has too long of a prolonged side-by-side battle. So this is kind of what we can expect to see until the Nissans come through. But the Nissans are only a quarter of the track ahead. The leader of the Nissans is only about a quarter, well, about half of a track now ahead of Andreas Schuster. So there we see Tuomas Mustonen with his caboose of Timothy Reed just trying to cling to him. And that's another 4 seconds down the road. That's 4 seconds. That's what that looks like. Down to Farron Grau and Jack David Spickett, who are training caboose as well.
That's a pretty big gap for only lap 3 of this race. And honestly critical, because we keep talking about it, but the slipstream is going to keep everybody tight together like we've been seeing so far. Aaron Humphrey down here in ninth has got to be ruining the mistakes he's made, giving up a good opportunity to capture some points today. Although it's not over yet, he just needs maybe a little bit of luck on his side and some good strategy as we ride on board, showing you just how fast everything goes past here on the Mulsanne.
Joe, Mustonen has pulled 1 second per position over the last 2.5 laps over 10th position. It's our crystal list down in 10th is 12 seconds behind our leader Tuomas Mustonen right now, which is a huge surprise to see just the kind of pace that our leaders are running and pulling away from the rest of the field.
Really are lightning fast up at the front. And is Timothy Reed's pace legit? That's the other question in this, because obviously he's going to be able to pull along with Tuomas quite easily. If he loses that slipstream, is he too going to fall victim like the rest have and start to slide backwards?
Well, it doesn't need to be legit. All he needs to do is to be able to make a pass on the last lap. If he can cling to Tuomas, especially through the pit stop cycle. But pit stop cycles, usually we see break stuff up. We've got a 3-way battle for 8th position between Fernando Serrato, Alexander Vandersand, and Aaron Humphrey as they're going into the Indianapolis course. Oh, it's really close, but side by side between Serrato and Humphrey, and they're going to be pushed out wide. This is going to bunch everything together again.
Serrato nearly shoved into the gravel, but thankfully pulls it back together. Big slide off the corner there from Humphrey as things continue to be chaotic here in the mid-pack. Vandersand gets slowed up because of it, and now Kundalis, you can see in the bright green, pops out to see if he can get higher than 10th.
Absolutely. There you see the compression and decompression that happens in those hard braking zones for the GTPs. It's what strings these guys out is when they have to go through those very tight corners, and the acceleration in the GTP is honestly a little unnerving. You can really just relying on the rear tires like a drag car almost to just grip that track and to fling you forward as the front end picks up, and it's hard to control coming off of the corners like that. So that's why we see different drivers with different amounts of confidence in those tires in order to get going.
Down into the braking of the Ford chicane, the snake of cars now weaves their way through the back and forth. We check in with Noel Lundberg, who has now taken the lead. I don't think we've reported on this.
Just happened, Joe.
Yeah, so Schuster falls to second.
Yeah, absolutely. Noel Lundberg just making the pass on Schuster. Honestly, it is not that significant. We're going to see Schuster with another opportunity into Indianapolis, actually before Indianapolis, and he's going to take it. This kind of swap over is something we're going to be seeing a lot at the front of the Audi field. It's a little like an old school, more like a car of tomorrow NASCAR race with slingshots and bump drafting. So it's really surprising, to be honest with you, that we haven't seen more of this over the course of the day. But if we had a statistic, if we could pull a statistic on the amount of passes going on in the Audi class, it would be somewhere close to 100 likely by the end of the race.
So I wonder too, because the slipstream is so powerful and we have a pit stop today, will we see some shenanigans on that front too? If you're Noel Lundberg, honestly, I wouldn't want to lead. I'd want to just sit behind Andreas.
Absolutely, especially because saving fuel is really important here at Le Mans. That depends on whether or not you overfueled or underfueled the car. Most drivers in the Audis underfueled by a good 2 laps because they know that they can sit in the draft and just make fuel. But we've been seeing a lot of battling from these Audis. There's only 13 of them, and so they know that there's a good opportunity for a win for everybody if they can just hang on to it. And honestly, battling side by side helps bring more chaos into the fray, and if you're not good on raw pace, the chaos is actually your beneficiary.
So Schuster will remain ahead down into the forward chicane. Lundberg doesn't attack for the time being. Doug Cloud sits in third. Great gain by him, up 3 positions from the start. Ian Haycock's also back there in fifth, is up 3 currently. So they've managed to avoid the chaos that you just heard Adam mentioning, at least in the first 4 laps of this race. But we have quite a ways to go before this one is done and dusted. So watch this space as we jump back to P4 with Jack David Spickett trying to see if he can get onto the podium. He's chasing Farron Grau.
Absolutely, and I can also report that Timothy Reed has fallen off the back of Mooston, and this was due to a bad exit out of the Ford chicanes. So he's now 2 seconds back and out of the draft of Mooston, and so we'll get to see both of their raw pace at this point. Jack David Spickett, though, in his nice battle here with Grau and Jungbluth behind. Jack David Spickett, he's up. He's in the same position that he started in, and taking a look at his lap comparisons to Farron Grau, he gained a decent, Farron Grau gained a decent amount of time on him over the first lap, but then has been losing just a couple of tenths, about half a second on lap 2 and a quarter of a second on lap 3. JDS trying to reel back in Farron Grau.
And you said earlier that it doesn't matter if Timothy Reed has legitimate pace, and I was sitting and thinking to myself, I think it does matter because of this very reason. The 19 dropping off, and now already 2.5 seconds back, unless he can actually chase him down or pull something wild out of the hat on the pit strategy. I mean, Thomas just has to run away.
Yeah, I mean, the raw pace wasn't that important until he made a mistake and lost that time, and now having to claw his way back, it's not happening. He's lost half a second over the course of the last lap. Yeah, Thomas can pull that out just by another second, probably over the next couple of laps before the pit stop. Then he's going to have a very good buffer going into the pit stops, and Timothy Reed won't have an opportunity. He's lost his drafting partner, so if he's underfueled, he's got some big problems that he has to worry about. He might have to drop all the way back to Farron Grau 4 seconds back in order to save some fuel for him. So Tuomas doesn't look like he's concerned about fuel. He's continuing to press ahead.
Indeed. And right now, Farron Grau sits at about, like you said, 4 seconds back. Checking the lap times, Farron was still slower, but we don't know how much of that lap Timothy Reed had to pull from the car ahead to help speed him up just a little bit. This will be the first one that we really know what the accurate pace is between the two rivals. Is into the first chicane down into Daytona goes Farron Grau. You're allowed to slide up to that white line as long as you don't cut through the exit of the chicane. So that is fair game. And those behind him starting to separate a little bit. So that's actually working out pretty well with Farron Grau. He's got his own little space without pulling the train along.
Yeah, JDS is about 1 second back, so still within the draft, but he's got some work to do to try and get himself up to Farron Grau, as we said. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on strategy-wise in the heads of these drivers as Jack David Spickett takes a very wide exit to the second Nissan chicane. So there we see another battle. This is Aaron Humphrey tucked in behind Alexander Van der Sande. Alexander Van der Sande does not like getting past very much, and Aaron Humphrey does not care for the opinions of other drivers. So Aaron's going to make the move, and Van der Sande possibly looking for some fuel saving himself. He's going to drop in behind Aaron Humphrey and try and save some fuel.
Yeah, as they send it down into the Mulsanne hairpin, he's going to make that pass clean. So Van der Sande slots in behind. You can see almost got a bunch of tandem groups going on back there. Schwabauer and Serrato are together. Sanchez and Hovdal, which they're actually swapping positions right now on screen, and that's going to be Hovdal up into 11th, Sanchez down to 12th. But yeah, drivers have kind of paired up with one another.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is all coming off the trail of just a couple of mistakes from some of the drivers. You know, Le Mans may not look that challenging. It doesn't have that many corners when you look at it on a track map, but that lack of corners means that the entry and exit of each one is extremely vital because it sets up a long straightaway. And so a little slip up, a little slip of the tires, a little slip of the diff on the exit, and suddenly you've lost 20 miles an hour on that straightaway to the driver ahead, and that equates to about half a second. So if you make another mistake in the next corner, then you've lost the draft. It's cumulative, and you have to work. It feels like the old traditional grading system, Joe. It feels like, if you get that first C, then you have to work extra hard to get yourself back up to a B.
Exactly. Well, Mustonen here coming through to finish yet another lap and start lap 6 down into the Dunlop curve and the Dunlop chicane. And there you can see the difference between himself and Reed was a whole second last lap. Farron Grau and Reed, though. Reed's still quicker, so that 27.5, I think, is the actual pace that we can expect from the 19. I don't think he's going to get caught by Grau unless the traffic becomes a problem.
I want to give an update on our current championship leader, Jukka Leskala. He had a mistake early on and got a slowdown that led him to fall off the back of the pack. Let's take a look at Timothy Reed and Farron Grau. But Jukka Leskala has now gotten into the secondary pack in the Audis. That's about 6 seconds behind our lead pack, and is currently battling with Josh Brain for the 9th position in the Audi class. But Jukka Leskala in that number 1 machine is just trying to recover today, trying to get up to a decent finishing position and reduce the points lost to Noah Lundberg. There we see Yuko with a close follow of Josh Brain tucked in behind him.
And he's not too far back from the leaders, just really needs to clear these guys. He might actually be able to see way up in the distance some of those drivers he's chasing on these longer straights. Because right now, Leskala's looks like about 8 seconds behind Schuster. On a normal track, that wouldn't be impossible for him to catch up. It just all depends on how he can do leapfrogging this group. And he looks like he's trying. I think he's picking them off bit by bit.
Nissan leaders are 1 lap from the back of the Audis. I expect that they'll get to the back of the Audis probably somewhere around Mulsanne corner of next lap is when Thomas Mussen will touch the back of the Audi class, and that's when things will start to get very interesting as far as strategy is concerned. But at the moment, this gigantic pack, this is the second pack that we're looking at. There's Enver Schuster down to Ian Haycox in the Audis. Oh, Alexander Vandersant's gone around.
And that's down at Arnage. He's going to get the car going. Oh, you can see, no, excuse me, that's at the Mulsanne hairpin. So he's going to get the car moving, but he lost a ton of positions. It's very easy to outbrake yourself, but also there can be times where drivers run into you and shove you off the road. I'm not sure which it was in this case.
It was a little bit of a mistake on his line, on his braking line through the Mulsanne hairpin. We're going to take a look at it, but he doesn't get far enough over to the right on his braking and ends up in the gray on the outside of the corner. And then the tires lock up over the bumps right there, and he can't get the car slowed down. Fortunately, he ends up on that little access road and is able to get going, but he's lost a good 5 or 6 positions, especially with that slide, almost half spin coming off the end of that wreck.
That almost became a worse wreck as he rejoined. Obviously, he was in a hurry. I don't think he did anything necessarily wrong, because it wasn't like he chopped somebody off there, but definitely a few drivers were, I think, caught out by him suddenly appearing on the exit of that turn. As Alex Van de Sant now tries to play catch-up. He sits in 15th position with Jack Wells just in front of him through the Porsche curves and down into Corvette curve. Off of this fast left-hander, we check in with Oye Zamaloa in the meantime. He's up 2 spots, chasing Fabian Jungbluth. Oye has started to show up more and more here in the IMSA Vintage cars after he became a regular over in the Lotus 49s.
Absolutely. The vintage community tends to hang together and race together. They like the challenges of these old cars and just how much of a driver's machine these things were. And it's no surprise to see Oye making his way over here into the IMSA Vintage Series and battling it out with the series regulars, now up to 6th position, up 2 spots from his starting spot, one on merit and one on a mistake from Van der Sant. You can see him getting a little bit wide there on the exit. Fortunately, no slowdown for him. He'll stay connected to Jungbluth down the straight. And I made a mistake, Joe. I really thought that it was going to take Thomas another half lap to get up to the back of the Audis, but he's already in them.
I figured the Porsche curves were going to give him a huge jump over them because he's GTPs have so much more downforce compared to the GTO cars. And yeah, he is picking them off bit by bit. Already about halfway through this first group. I think he's going to get Yuko Lescali here before the braking, although Yuko, in typical fashion, able to brake extremely late there and makes life a little difficult for Mustonen. And now, oh goodness, he has to choose late on which side to take this car.
And I can also report that Emerson Gaudin money shifted himself into Mulsanne 1 and blew his engine. He's back in the pits, unfortunately, so Emerson Gaudin out in the Audis from that lead pack. So that's shrunk that lead pack down by 1 car in the Audi class. But Mustonen already has gained 2 seconds over Timothy Reed. And you can see Timothy Reed having to navigate his way through the Audis. He's made it through the Mulsanne hairpin and now trying to make it past Kevin Parrish and Yuko Lescala. The Audis are still able to stay together in their packs even with these first couple of Nissans coming through, but I would expect that the Nissan packs that we have just a little bit further back are going to break up these Audis pretty well.
It's funny how even at a track like Le Mans, where you'd think traffic is a total non-issue with those long straights, there still seems to be a difference between the haves and the have-nots in terms of traffic skill. And right now, Timothy Reed needs to play a little bit of catch-up.
And here's Matthias Hovdahl, Fernando Serrato, and Zabir Sanchez as they dive into Indianapolis. They're in a tight three-way fight for that 9th position. They're not going to like the fact that they're about to catch up to the back of the Audi pack because it's going to separate that battle pretty significantly. I can report that Serrato has some left side chassis damage about halfway down on that left side wing. That's going to be affecting a straight line speed probably to the tune of 5 to 7 miles per hour. So that will allow Sanchez to close up just a little bit. But with Serrato in the draft of Hovdahl, it shouldn't be affecting him that much unless Hovdahl starts disappearing from the track and taking away that draft.
Let's hope that his internet connection is pretty good then. And that doesn't happen. Yeah, look at him whip through here, back and forth, changes of direction. Even though these cars that are now 30 years old, they still are incredibly swift around here and certainly utilize it well. And some of them are going to take a pit stop this lap. Now, we are before halfway, so this is interesting that we're seeing this. Serrato is amongst them.
This is an interesting strategy. They caught up to the back of the Audis, and instead of trying to navigate through the Audis this time around, they're going to take to the pits and take some fuel and try and see if the Audis separate a little bit due to the rest of the GTPs going through and see if they can have a cleaner run through the Audis next time around. I can report that the Nissan packs have made it to the Audi leaders and have started to separate things a little bit. Andreas Schuster and Johan van Hixie have actually pulled out 1.5 seconds on Doug Cloud. That is out of the draft for Doug Cloud and Noah Lundberg. They have lost the leaders unless the Nissan GTPs that are coming through can start to interrupt things a little bit more for the leaders.
Now, and bad news for fans of Serrato. He has missed his pit stall, so he had to back up and try and get into it again. That's going to be a lot of costly time for him. And one thing that, I don't think we've ever talked about, honestly, that I do know as a fact is that these cars are period accurate and don't have the pit limiters. Correct. So these guys will have to hit their marks perfectly to maximize their in and outs on pit lane.
Absolutely. There we see that was Will Schwaber who decided to go onto the shoulder of the road in order to make it by Doug Cloud and Noah Lundberg. And there you see the chaos. This is what we live for in the vintage IMSA series. The IMSA Vintage series is this multi-class chaos. This different lines, different cars, everyone trying to make it through at the same time, everyone trying to be quick. Doug Cloud and Noah Lundberg have caught back up to the back of Van Hixen and Schuster due to all this chaos, and that's going to be Sanchez Galindo trying to go around the outside. There you see 3-4 wide in the background there as all these Nissans trying to navigate their way through.
Another 3 wide moment there is on either side. The battle between Koundulis and Sanchez Galindo rages on down into the hairpin to the inside. It looks like Sanchez Galindo will win that battle, but only for the corner. Koundulis pulls right back into his slipstream.
And now we have the drivers, the Nissans in the back of these packs, trying to cut their way through. Look at how close Kundelis is to the back of Sintes Galindo. And here's Jack Wells trying to navigate his way through as well. The Audis trying to keep themselves going in a straight line, but Sintes Galindo holding on to that position for the moment, and it doesn't look like Kundelis is going to battle him here.
He's going to sit behind, but Van de Sant has now caught them. Remember, he's a bit out of position, so theoretically, he should be quicker than these guys, but it's a question of, do they want to fight him? Does he want to pass them? And if he does get past, do they try and latch on behind?
A little bit of nose-to-tail contact in the Audis between third Doug Cloud and second Joram Van Hixie, as they've got Anders Sandberg and Brendan Lim just like ducking in and out of them throughout. A little bit risky to be weaving that much going through the Audis, but they're able to get through, and that is, well, it's not the last of the Nissans, but it's the last of the Nissans who are in battles with one another coming through. This should free up the Audis once again to battle with each other.
Absolutely, and as they come up through karting now, Joram is back to Schuster. Doug Cloud still dealing with Noel Lumberg in behind him. He's got a bit of ground to make up to catch up to Joram. See if he can do that as they get ready to now finish the halfway mark of this race. These drivers decide not to pit in this time. And I do love the old H-pattern shifter that Doug runs with his setup. You can see him having to slam through the gears, and this Audi is notorious for having a very, very finicky gearbox.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually easiest to run an H-pattern in the Audi. I've tried it with the paddle shifters, and it's just not possible to do it with any sort of efficiency. It's definitely easiest to run with the H pattern and to do the classic iRacing pre-shift strategy. That definitely makes it easiest to just drop the clutch and get into that next gear. And with the paddles, you have to be holding down the shifter when you drop the clutch, and it's just a lot to keep going in your brain while you're also trying to manhandle this very challenging car. Look at this though, Will Schwaber side by side with Matthias Hovdahl for 8th position.
All right, who's going to come away with this one? Hovdahl, up 10 spots from the beginning. He did set a qualifying time, but a bit unusual for him to be as far down as this, especially on a track like this where this is usually his happy place. Matthias Hovdahl loves low downforce tracks.
Absolutely, he loves low downforce tracks, but what makes him good at the low downforce tracks is just how good he is on the edge of traction when it comes to the medium and high-speed corners. Le Mans doesn't have that many medium to high-speed corners. It's the Porsche curves, and that's pretty much it. So it's no surprise that this is a little bit more of the struggle for him. But that being said, Willie doing a great job of just hanging onto the back of Hovdahl here. They're about a second and a half back of Aaron Humphrey, who's their next victim up ahead. And Hovdahl just barely within the draft up there, and Schwaber doing his best to keep up.
So we'll see if they start to gain on Aaron Humphrey here, who's certainly been in the wars today, unfortunately. Gave up quite a bit of track position early on. There he is there in that green machine. And behind, looks like maybe they gained just a tiny bit, but Willie is doing what he needs to do in this situation, which is probably not fight Matthias Hovdahl and just kind of riding along, waiting to see if they can catch up to P7. Sounds like the GTOs have basically all rejoined into one train now.
Yeah, they adjourned their battle for a little bit to let the Nissans go through, and now they're back at it, with Matt Malone being the next driver to come through on the leaders in the GTOs. It's about a second back as they're approaching Indianapolis. And this could get interesting. Is he going to make it through all of them before the braking zone? The answer is yes. Just makes it. So Matt Malone is free and clear to go through. And Schuster, Van Hissey, Cloud, and Lundberg can continue to go back.
Matt, one of the popular streamers in the iRacing spectrum, as tends to have a lot of fans and sometimes brings quite a few drivers. I don't think we mentioned this is top split as well. So clearly a lot of drivers have shown up. We had over 80 competitors sign up for today's race, so that's why you only see 40 here in the top one.
Absolutely. The strength of field in this race is insane. In the Audis, it's 3.8. And in the Nissans, it's also around that as well. So it's a very strong strength of field for this top split, and that's why you're seeing such good racing. Honestly, knock on wood, but we haven't seen anyone come together with another class.
There's Matt.
But Matt Malone has had his own incident, and this was a self-spin through the Porsche curves. He caught a little bit too much curb on the inside, just past the tire barriers. We'll see it here. This is pretty easy to do in the Nissans. It turns in a lot more aggressively than you'd expect for a vintage car like this.
So there's the entry into the Porsche curves, actually frighteningly fast. I haven't gotten to now see them in person too. It's right stunning how cars do this. Oh yeah, wow, that curb just bucked the car up.
And it's really easy for that to happen to you. You don't expect the Nissan to be that pointy on the nose, and so you turn in and the thing just hooks up, and then he has to sit here and wait for all of the cars to go by. So unfortunately for Matt, that's going to be him into the pits for damage repairs.
Credit to him for making sure to wait patiently and not get an unsafe rejoin out there, causing more problems, especially with how blind it is up through all the Porsche curves. Still waiting on the vast majority of the GTP field to come into pits. And let's see, Serato currently in 21st is the highest of our pitters. In fact, I think it's only himself, Ortiz, Ahmad, and Schneider who have taken scheduled stops out there.
Yeah, Serato didn't take that much fuel, to be honest with you. He was only in the box for 29.6 seconds. That's quite a quick pit stop. So hopefully he has enough to make it to the end there.
Yeah, especially considering he's now running alone, not within a draft of somebody. So that'll make life all the harder. Zamaloa on board with the battle for 5th position. Jungbluth just in front of us. Zamaloa, one of the newer drivers here in IMSA Vintage, but Jungbluth has been around for literally years here racing these cars against all kinds of competitors. And in that time, he's taken, I think, a tiny handful of wins. But has progressed up from a back marker to a driver that at times would snatch the wins to now being usually somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah, Fabian Jungbluth did a great job over the course of these seasons to make his way into good points-paying standings throughout his races. And he currently holds only 3 wins in his races. His highest win... Yeah, he's honestly done a really good job over the course of his 235 entries as far as positions are concerned, but only 3 wins in the broadcast races that we had going back about 5 years.
Ooh, okay, so here's where it gets wild, though. He is second highest in terms of races run, 235. The only driver with more is Martin Krajcik at 240. So both those guys have been basically part of the furniture.
Absolutely. The leaders of the Audis have decided that they're going to really mix things up. They were 3 wide going into Indianapolis, and looks like Noah Lundberg is tired of being in 4th. He's decided to jump forward. Is this indicative of him taking a pit stop this lap? We'll find out.
Van Hixie has moved to the back of that group, so is he just kind of hanging low, trying to stay out of the radar of those around him and be less of a problem and save some fuel? Plus, no, we can't see him in the background, but the next car back, 5 seconds away, is Yuko Leskala.
I was just going to say, Joe, these guys better not look in the mirror, because it's a little scary seeing a man who had a slowdown and was well last out of the draft, now sitting behind them 5 seconds back, gaining. And how much you want to bet he's going to take a risk in the pit stop to try and get up to this pad?
Yuko is the most winningest driver in the IMSA Vintage Series on the GTOs, with 82 to his name and a lot of championships too. So hence why we've been mentioning him so much. He is easily amongst the fastest ever to race in this car on iRacing. And there you see the difference between Leskala and Lundberg. A couple of our GTOs coming in. That is Doug Cloud and Lundberg, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So Quite a few drivers coming into the pits right now. And Joe, I can report that 82 wins is the winningest driver in the IMSA Vintage Series, period.
Wow.
So well over Fabian Gerber, who's second in the wins in GTP with 49. So a huge gap there. Here we see Carlos Fonseca, who started from near the back of the field. He is our last driver, well, not our last driver who has to take a pit stop, but he's down there in 20th position battling with Alec Campbell.
So it looks like most of the second half of the GTO field has pitted, so we just need Schuster, Van Hickse, Lescala, Alcalde, and Letaniemi that need to come in and take their stops. This is Schuster, your leader, still pulling along Joram, but now, instead of what was a train of 4 for much of this race, has now been dwindled to 2.
Absolutely. So Schuster and Van Hickse out there in front by themselves at the moment, and just trying to keep themselves going as quickly as possible. Nico Lescala, though, Joe, he's only 4 seconds back. He's already gained a second on these guys just since the beginning of this past lap. So Lescala really putting on a show, trying to gain as much time, as much speed as he can before that pit stop.
As they fly down the back stretch, the Mulsanne straight, you can see how boxy these cars are. And the interesting thing to me, too, about these things is that one thing we haven't brought up is, yes, they punch a huge hole in the air, but there's a lot of grunt underneath them. There's almost a bit of a crossover in which they almost hold pace with the Nissans.
Leaders in the GTPs are in. Tuomas Mustonen is in, as well as Timothy Reed. So our leaders in the GTPs taking their pit stop. Mustonen in the first box. Timothy Reed is coming up behind him. So Mustonen not the first to take a pit stop, but the first of the front runners to do so, and he brought pretty much the entire pack with him.
Jack David Spickett kept going, though. So did Van de Sant. Looks like Koundalis will carry on. Del Olmo and Jack Wells. So we do have a few that are going to try and stretch this as far as they can go. Traditionally, that has been the more desired strategy in most series, especially tin tops here on iRacing. As the car gets lighter, it gets faster, and it just makes much more sense to stay out as long as you can. But Koundalis bumped up to 3rd because of the others around him pitting now, and still chasing on Van de Sant. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's pulling some of that draft.
Absolutely. So Koundalis dragging that draft up to Van de Sant, and about 4 seconds ahead of Javier Del Olmo. Looks like Mustonen is going to come out into 6th position, 21 seconds back of the battle between Del Olmo and Wells, who are side by side right now. So Koundalis in a good position to try and claw back that position from Van de Sant, or at least save some fuel, but I'll be surprised. It'll be interesting to see who chooses to go the longest in the GTPs, because it can get light, a little too light under low fuel, depending on what kind of a setup you have for your race setup.
I just heard Ian Haycox and Doug Cloud talking on the radio, and I thought I heard them mentioning trying to catch up to Noel Lundberg. So I wonder if they're going to try and leapfrog back and forth a little bit here to see if they can get a little extra pace.
Well, they're going to need to work hard at it. They're 3.6 seconds back, and Lundberg has been putting in 2 seconds a lap faster than them over the last lap. So it's going to be hard-pressed to get up there. Looks like Andreas Schuster has decided to take to the pits alone, so he's going to leave Joram Van Hickse out there alone as well. Yuko Lescala is going to continue going as well, as his partner, Escalotaniemi, it looks like he's had an issue.
Oh, well, no, Esco's still going, it looks like.
So, oh, Lescala had a slowdown.
Ah.
Second one of the day.
That's going to be another bit of frustration for him. I kind of wonder, I feel like this is actually a smart move from Schuster, because if he pits and Joram pits, he doesn't lose anything. They're all back together. They all stay together. But if he doesn't pit, they could find themselves losing time to someone like Lundberg, because he doesn't know that Lundberg is alone, although might wind up not being as good, depending if he comes out.
He'll be together. He should be together with Lundberg, because Lundberg, there he is. This is going to benefit both of them. They're going to have draft, and Van Hickse's going to be alone. So, yeah,
exactly.
I think you're right, Joe. This was a good play.
Well, he didn't know that Lundberg was alone, so he didn't know he was doing Lundberg a bit of a favor here. But yeah, like you said, it works out excellently for both of them. And Joram is now probably going to have to respond, although I don't think he could go much farther on his current tank of fuel. In fact, in our GTPs, JDS is pitting, Van de Sant, Koundelis, and it looks like Wells. Yeah, everybody else has hit the end.
JDS is out, Joe.
Oh, wow.
JDS is out. He was weaving to try and get more fuel into the pocket, but he was struggling to get the car running.
The one thing about that, though, is I believe that does not work in iRacing like it would in real life. So, if anything, it just scrubs some speed off of you. So you don't want to do that. But drivers try it anyways. Psychologically, as they all hit their pit stalls. But we're expecting Mustonen to easily blow by. In fact, there he goes there.
Yeah, absolutely. So as everyone's in the pits taking fuel, Mustonen says, "See you later," and is going to take off into the distance. Just needs to be very careful not to catch too many slowdowns, catch too many incidents, and lose all this time he has over the rest of the pack. 10 seconds, it looks like. I can report that Andreas Schuster let Noah Lundberg go by and is now doing a leapfrog of Lundberg. So they're trying to work together with the draft to try and pull themselves into a position to battle Van Hixie once he pits.
Certainly has been an impressive day for Mustonen. Like you said, 10 seconds ahead, and at a track where it's hard to shake the slipstream, that's really impressive. But there we see those two pairs, each trying to get away from the other, and Schuster and Lundberg holding the track position, probably should be the ones battling for the lead. The last thing they want to do is to make it a 4-car fight for the win at the end. So they need a temporary truce to just try and stay as far away from Doug Cloud and Ian Haycox as they can.
I can report that Yuko Leskola is tucked in behind Miguel Alcalde, and I think he's trying to play the fuel game, but I don't know how long that's going to benefit him. Unfortunately for Leskola, Alcalde is not the quickest driver on the track. He did last time though do a 58.8, which is only 0.2 slower than Leskola's quickest lap. So Alcalde being a pretty good pace setter and allowing Leskola to save some fuel right now.
Something he might desperately need in this situation. Van Hixie is now coming in. Are we going to see others pitting in this time? Yes, Alcalde pits. Leskola pits. So this is it. End of the window for everyone as Lettiniemi also joins.
So that goes back to Lundberg and Schuster, who are tucked further back behind, to see whether or not they can pass these guys in the pits. They were about 40 seconds back when they dropped into the pits, and with a pit lane time of about 56 seconds, I think they'll be able to do it, but it's not quite that simple when it comes down to doing the math on pit exit.
I'm watching Schuster. He's just come out of the Corvette curves now, and yeah, there you can see him heading around, following behind. Oh, he's fallen behind Noel Lundberg, so Lundberg's now overtaken him.
Van Hixie with a 23.3 stop versus Noel Lundberg's 24.6, so 1 second or 1.3 seconds faster in the box. How's that going to translate into on track? There goes Schuster across the line. Van Hixie just exiting pit lane now, and it's going to be Van Hixie ahead of Lundberg and Schuster, but by less than a second, so it's all to play for here at the end.
Yeah, they should feel the slipstream, reel them back in. And again, they probably will not want to battle in this situation. So they
need warm tires, Joe. They have warm tires to Van Hixie's cold tires.
It's a good point. I was thinking about that earlier in the race as well. I mean, not a track that is usually hard on tires, but definitely with those long straights, trying to get them up to temperature has got to be a little bit frustrating early on. It's about 97 Fahrenheit on the track itself today, so it is somewhat warm to help them heat up on your way out. But look at this. Yeah, now they're going to start reeling in that number 15.
Absolutely, and they've got a lot of work to do. Mustonen is on just starting lap 14, so he's got 4 laps to go here to finish this race out. These drivers are going to get passed by Mustonen in a couple of laps' time, maybe at the end of this lap, so they've got 4 laps to go as well.
They head up through the Daytona chicane now. The three don't look to be attacking one another as it sits currently, but now that Lundberg has caught up to him, what's he going to do? Is he going to try and fight him, or is he going to sit patiently behind in that slipstream, relying on him being quick enough? He's going to go ahead. He's going to fight him, looking for the top spot down into the braking of the second chicane on the Mulsanne, and pulls back to the racing line with confidence. No protest there from Van Hixie.
And he wants that top spot. Remember that he's only 10 points back of Yuka Leskola in the standings right now. Leskola down in sixth position gets 15 points. Guess how much Lundberg gets if he wins? 25.
That's going to be a decent swing. Granted, this is before they have their drop weeks taken into account, which will also affect this greatly. Ian Haycox has got himself, let's see. Oh, did he drop back from Cloud?
Yeah, he's 2.5 seconds back of Doug Cloud, unfortunately, so he's dropped the draft to Cloud. He's got Leskola, who's clinging to the back of him now. So Leskola's slowdown penalty lost him a good 5 seconds cumulatively over the course of the last 4 laps ever since that happened. And so Haycox is going to have to work together with Leskola in order to try and get himself back up to Doug Cloud, and then try and push Doug Cloud up to the back of those 3 in front. But if those 3 in front start battling, we're going to see a big change in that delta between Doug and Andrea Schuster for those 2 packs.
I mean, if you're going to lose the slipstream, though, who else would you want coming up behind you than Yuka Leskola?
Exactly.
Like,
but
hold
can
on.
You keep up with him?
Yeah, that will be the difficult part, I'm sure. But, I mean, you throw out the tow rope, you say, just hold on, I'll just hang out here, don't mind me.
Here's Farron Grau in a battle with Fabian Jungbluth for the 5th position. He just got passed by Jungbluth going into the Mulsanne hairpin, and now into Indianapolis. Jungbluth retains that position. They're trying to catch up to the back of Oyer Zamaloa, and they're about 1.5 seconds back, so not quite in the draft just yet, but if Jungbluth can get some good exits, he can drag Grau and Schwaber back up with it.
Yeah, out of Arnage now, and flying towards the Porsche curves, as this group is one of the closer ones that we have out there. Most of the other GTPs have all kind of separated from one another.
And Joe, just to make things even more complicated for our leaders in the GTOs, they're going to have the entire GTP pack come through in the next 2 laps. So this is going to make things even more complicated for them. And look at this, the bottle up going on already in the Porsche curves with the GTPs.
Oh, this is going to be a bit iffy here in this group. Everybody's going to have to stay patient as they fly out of there, and it looks like they've all gotten through. So nice job by all involved. Van de Sant currently leading this group, but with Humphrey close behind.
Yeah, this is 9th on back to 13th. This is Van de Sant, Humphrey, Sanchez, Sanchez Galindo, and Koundalis, who are all battling for a spot in the top 10, for 2 spots in the top 10, mind you. And so they've got a lot to fight for, and they're going to be trying to cut through the thick of the GTO traffic up ahead of them in just over the course of this lap.
Indeed. So next up for them, trying to see, yeah, Mickey Friesen going to be the Mickey Friesen and Josh Brain, I think, going to be the first ones that they will catch up to. So we watch Van de Sant fly down through the Chapel rundown and out of the Forest S's. Look at them right up against the edge of the track. They're using as much of it as they can. Can't go too far down through Tertre Rouge, or you will get a slowdown penalty, and that is definitely going to hurt here on a straight where you want to be as fast as possible. As we start to pick up speed now, anybody going to try anything coming down into the braking? Doesn't look like it.
Nobody trying anything there, but the GTPs up ahead of Farron Grau, Fabian Jungbluth, and Will Schwaber actually tangled up with a couple of the Audis. No damage done, but just a little bit of side-by-side bumping between them. There we see Mickey Friesen down there in the 10th position in the GTOs. He was one of the ones who got a little bit of contact there. He's in a battle with Josh Brain, and there you see the GTPs having gone by. They're going to get caught by that group that we were just looking at. That's Alexander Van de Sant in the background that you can see in those GTPs coming up to that chicane. So this is Mulsanne 2 they're going through, and the GTPs are going to catch them probably on the exit of the Mulsanne hairpin.
Yeah, I think that's about right here. Look at them all still together, which has got to be a bit of a scary sight, even just in your relative box here in the sim, seeing all those GTPs suddenly barreling down on you along the Mulsanne straight, and they do indeed, good call, catch them right at the end, and it might slow up Van de Sant just a bit.
But remember, the Audis get off the corners faster than the GTP, so it's actually going to give Van de Sant a good opportunity to try and streak away from Sanchez and Sintes Galindo, but that draft too strong here at Le Mans. You can see them trying to duck over and try and break the draft to the cars behind as they gap Mickey Friesen and Josh Brain battling for that last spot in the top 10 in the Audis. They're going to catch up to Franco Scurri, who's been racing alone ever since having that slide at the beginning of the race, right on the exit of the final chicanes. So he's kind of just been on his own all day. But here we see the leaders in the GTOs starting to get caught by GTP traffic.
Yeah, in fact, first going by going to be Jack David Spickett. And then, Zamaloa, who catches them at a bit of an awkward spot. Van Hixie is able to make room for him, thankfully. Saw him coming. That slowed down Zamaloa quite a bit, and Jungbluth catches up, but so does Farron Grau, sliding all over the place and is filling the mirrors of the 13.
Absolutely. There's Schrauber going by, but he's lost time to Hovdal. Hovdal with a good opportunity into the Ford chicanes. Can't do it, though. He has to back out of it because it's just too tight of a moment there. But my goodness, these GTOs don't want to give an inch now. They're into the final couple of laps. They don't want to lose any time to their competitors behind, but neither do the GTPs.
3 laps to go. Now, in most series, that would mean we are very close to the finish as we go side by side down to the Dunlop chicane. Jungbluth on Zamaloa, and he gets the pass done. Beautiful move by Fabian. I mean, here we have to remember, even in the fastest class, it is 3.5 minutes just to cycle around once.
Absolutely. So Mustinen on lap 16 of 18, so 3 to go for him. And Jungbluth, what a pass that was. There we see Mustinen going through Mulsanne 1 and on the exit of it, and he's got 12.5 seconds over Timothy Reed, who's back there, and then it's another 7.5 to Jack David Spickett. You can see all 3 of them on screen there. We've had a wreck. Aaron Humphrey upside down, and he's wrecked with one of the GTOs.
Oh, that's the number 15 of Bjorn Van Hixie.
No!
Oh, one of our rivals for the victory, potentially. And he gets the car going, but surely he's out of the hunt now, and we don't know how much damage is on it.
This was the worst kind of accident that you can have at Le Mans, and this happened when Aaron Humphrey was trying to avoid an incident up ahead of him with Alexander Van der Sant. He's going to go across the rumble strips on the inside. Right here you see Van der Sant get held up, and then here comes Humphrey. He's going to go to the inside and go across that bump that's there and hit the inside wall and come across and make contact with multiple cars. I'm surprised multiple people weren't involved in that.
Oof. I mean, that was a massively close moment for Koundalis, and we're not sure who he was with. We're going to ride on board to see.
Seemed like a good idea at the time, but there's that bump right there.
Yeah. You got to make those split-second decisions, and unfortunately, it wound up biting him. It was Alexander Van de Sant who had just a narrow escape, squeaking through and pulling along Koundalis. There is the damaged car of Humphrey, and that is Jorn Van Hixie, who's fallen to 8th position.
And now we've got a nice battle for P6 rather, in the GTPs between Farron Grau, Matthias Hovdal, and Will Schwaber. They're still side by side as they head towards Indianapolis. Hovdal has the line, but Grau doesn't want to give it up. They go side by side through there. A little bit of a squirm from Grau. He's going to try and hang on to it on the outside. Hovdal has to give him the room, but he's got better acceleration and takes it away before the right-hander.
These guys battle too much, then Zamaloa is going to start to run away, so they don't want to squabble too long. They'll probably want to try and keep hang.
And speaking of squabbling, Joe, Andreas Schuster and Noah Lindbergh are now alone at the front. They can battle as much as they'd like. They got 7 seconds back to Jukka Leskola behind them. But if they battle too much, that's going to be Leskola gaining there. Lindbergh no longer has any opportunity to try and take the lead of the championship this race. Leskola is now in that 3rd position and has plenty of ability to catch back up.
Never say never. I mean, if there's one thing we've seen in these camel cars is that chaos reigns supreme. And you just cannot expect anything except the unexpected. On Schuster, he's going to try and add to his tally of wins with his second ever in his career. Zamaloa has been caught, though, by the likes of Hovdal. I thought he was going to start to run away, but no, Hovdal all over the back of him.
Absolutely, Zamaloa thought he was free and clear, but nothing like it. He's got Hovdal tucked in behind, and here comes Farron Grau as well. Schwalber, who had a spin going, had a half spin actually going into the right-hander off of Indianapolis. Oh, Hovdal squirrely over the under the Dunlop Bridge. He's able to hang on to it, but he's way offline. He's going to lose time to Grau.
It's such a fast-flowing sequence of corners. If you get offline, you're going to lose tons of time. Grau with the chance to try and put him down one, especially with the slipstream here. Look at how much time they lost to Zamaloa just with that one little mistake.
Absolutely. So Hovdal now trying to just get the power down, trying to make that pass on Zamaloa. He doesn't want to do it at the moment, so we see him streak by. He pops his nose out now. He's going to take a look. They're in the draft of Zamaloa, so Hovdal has to, so Grau has to drop in behind Hovdal. And now, once again, trying to power through. They're going to try and get up to the back of Zamaloa and Hubluth, who's up ahead as well, only 2.8 up the road.
Looking off the back, they separate just a bit for now, so things have calmed down momentarily. A lap and a half left in this race. It is very much coming down to it. And while it does look certain for Mustonen, as long as he can bring it home for Andreas Schuster, Noel Lundberg has gone side by side and is going to try and take it away. But is this the wrong move? Is Schuster now positioning himself where he wants to be for the finish?
I mean, they got a long way to go until they get to the finish. They still got a lap and a half left to go for them. Down in fifth position, Ian Haycox, Miguel Alcalde, and Esco Letanimi also battling with each other. You can see Schuster getting not a great run through Mulsanne 1, but that's not going to matter that much. He still is within the draft for sure. So still a lot of battles on track left to play out, Joe, with a lap and a half left to go.
Andreas with a second faster pit stop for his, so we don't know if his fuel is a little bit tight, so he could be trying to drop behind to save that a little bit as we check in with Aitor and Kundalis here fighting for ninth spot down towards Indianapolis. So they're getting ready to take the white flag within a minute or two here. Oh, but going in deep. Oh, my goodness. And that sends him into the wall. A little bit of contact, I fear, for Zamaloa from Farron Grau.
Yeah, unfortunately, Farron Grau just trying to take advantage of Zamaloa's slow run through Indianapolis, and that's major toe damage for Zamaloa. That's the end of his race. Mustonen, though, coming to the white flag, our leader, coming through the Ford chicanes for the penultimate time.
Well, Zamaloa can carry on as the good news, because even though he has a meatball flag, it's too few laps for him to get disqualified. So I imagine he's probably going to try and limp it home from here. In the meantime, Mustonen, like you said, now on his final run around Le Mans, has nearly 15 seconds over Timothy Reed, and it is the complete opposite down in the GTOs, who I believe are going to be taking the white flag within a minute or two themselves. There they are on screen through Indianapolis.
About 30 seconds left to go before they take the white. Schuster having retaken the lead from Lundberg. And Joe, they're losing time hand over fist to Leskala behind. He's gained a second and a half in this lap. It's not enough to get there if they don't battle side by side in a couple of corners and slow each other way up. But Leskala doing his darndest to try and catch that gap back up.
I mean, he almost needs them to do that at this point, which, I mean, it's likely. Oh, and Zamaloa has pitted in. Oh, that is a real shame. I guess the car not drivable enough that feels like he could take it back around. I figured one lap to go. You might as well just try and carry on and see if you can keep from losing too many positions. Van de Sant, though, is still fighting with Sintez Galindo in front of him. And then, of course, they've got Kundalis up in 8th. That's where it finally breaks off to the cars ahead. It's an 8-second gap up to Schwabauer.
Yeah, and this is all going to come together here on these straightaways into Mulsanne 1. I think it's got to be Sintez Galindo. No, he backs out of it, so this brings Van der Sant back into the picture, and just behind them is Sanchez. So this is all going to come together as they go through the Mulsanne hairpin at the end of these straights, so long as none of them have bad exits. I say that Sintez Galindo goes wide, and he's going to slow up Van der Sant as well. Sanchez with a good opportunity.
I wonder if Sintez Galindo was trying not to shoot a shot too early, but it may have bit him because he's fallen way back from Koundalis. He's going to have to get much closer as Van de Sant and Sanchez side by side coming up into the second chicane. In fact, maybe Van de Sant with a look on Sintez Galindo. No, can't quite break deep enough.
So here we go. Oh, that's going to be Koundalis going off wide. Sanchez shifts. It's chaos as they exit Mulsanne 2.
Oh, are we looking at 3 wide coming down into the Mulsanne hairpin? They're thinking about it. No, just 2 wide, as it's a much better run for both of them in comparison to Koundalis. And it's going to be Van de Sant around the outside if he can try and get this one done. Deep into the brakes for Sintez Galindo. They steer into the corner. They're going to make it out the other side, but it's Sintez Galindo who leads.
Sintez Galindo with a good opportunity to try and clamp this thing down, but it's still a 4-car fight. And honestly, Indianapolis is the last good place to pass, so we're going to see everyone try and take their opportunity into Indianapolis here. While keeping my eyes on the leader, we could stay here through Indianapolis, so here we go. It's looking to be 3 wide. They don't quite get it done. Sintez Galindo trying to hang on to it. Here we go to the corner. Who's going to come out the other side?
Oh, is very shallow into it, but it looks like Sintez Galindo was able to make the corner somehow. Unfortunately for him, he's slow off of it. Koundalis spies an opportunity, but we've got to cut away because the leader's coming through the 4 chicane. Mustonen is going to take the victory here at Le Mans in round 4 of the IMSA Vintage Series.
Absolutely down for 4th position. Fabian Jungbluth just made the pass on Matthias Hovdal for that 4th spot. Hovdal trying to get the pass on Jungbluth, couldn't quite get it done. Looks like Jungbluth is going to be able to hang on to that one. Back further in the field is that battle for 9th position between Koundalis, Sintez Galindo, and Sanchez. And at the moment, it's Van der Sant actually who has the better look of it all. But my goodness, these 4 cars still have been inseparable. Unless Van de Sant makes a mistake through here, he's going to have jumped 3 spots on this final lap. Oh, it's going to get close in the background.
Oh, somebody went off, it looks like, and he'll get back on, but Van de Sant does find his way to 8th in the end. We got to go to the battle for the lead in the GTOs. Schuster still being followed by Lundberg. Can Lundberg get this done? Because they're coming up to Indianapolis, and there's only one more long run. That is down to the Porsche curves.
Absolutely. They got Yo-Yo Ortiz in the GTPs behind them. That might cause a little bit of an issue going into the Porsche curves. So who gets the better brakes? Schuster very cautious under braking there. Good exits for both drivers, but Lundberg with a slightly better exit. Is he going to be able to be alongside when they get to the Porsche curves? Yo-Yo Ortiz is going to be the possible one to spoil this, but he's going to be able to get by before both of them get to the Porsche curves. So that's going to take the air off of the front of Schuster going into there. Noah Lundberg can't quite get there going into the curves. He's going to have to rely on a mistake from Schuster, but he goes wide. Lundberg going wide a little bit, possibly losing his opportunity.
I think maybe Lundberg was a bit too far back to try and get sneaky here at the end, so not looking like it's going to quite work out. Andreas Schuster, I got to see when his last win was here to try and figure out how long it's been since we've seen him on the top spot. But as long as he is clean through and this lapped car doesn't cause problems, that GTP is going to be cleaned by. Lundberg through the Ford chicane just behind Andreas Schuster, who is going to take the win here at Le Mans in the GTO class.
Back in P5 in the GTOs, we've got Franco Scurry trying to hold off Ian Haycox and Miguel Alcalde, as well as Esco Letiniemi. Looks like Letiniemi's out of it, but Alcalde trying to put pressure on Ian Haycox. Are they all clean out? Yes, they are. It's going to be Scurry in 5th position, Haycox in 6th, and Alcalde in 7th, with Letiniemi taking a slowdown before he crosses the line in 8th.
Yeah, don't want to wind up with that podium or with that slowdown costing you a good finish there at the end, and still haven't managed to find Schuster's last victory, but it looks like most of the drivers just about wrapping it up here.
Yeah, fantastic race for all involved. The last 5 minutes, quite frankly, the last 5 laps of this race, Joe, were completely insane.
So the last win was in September of 2022 from Andreas Schuster. He's been waiting a long time to double his tally here, and I think he's going to be happy, as I think he just blew his engine in celebration. All right, we're going to take that as a sign that it's time to head to break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so make sure and stick around. Welcome back to the Circuit de la Sarthe, where we just saw round 4 of the IMSA Vintage Series, and it was Tuomas Mustonen who takes the win on this one in the GTPs. It was not much of a contest once he was able to break the slipstream, so he kind of romped away once he was clear of second place, which was Timothy Reed for much of the race. And then, of course, you've got Jack David Spickett getting himself a valuable podium here, finishing in third. Fabian Jungbluth was P4, followed by Matthias Hovdahl in fifth and Farron Grau in the sixth position. Willie Schwalbauer wound up seventh ahead of Alexander Van de Sant, who was in quite a battle there at the very end. Heitor Sintez Galindo finished P9. It was Xavier Sanchez in 10th. Then on the next slide, you get to Arturas Kundalis, who finished 11th. Javier Del Olmo, only 12th, unfortunately for him. Didn't seem to have the pace at this track. Jack Wells was 13th, and Anders Sandberg was 14th. Fernando Serrato, his early pit stop didn't really pay off in the end. He wound up 15th. Brandon Lim was P16 and Laust Olsen at 17th. Yo-Yo Ortiz, P18. Then it's Alex Campbell finishing 19th, and then Shady Ahmad winding up 20th, having started from the back of the field. Carlos Fonseca finished 21st today. Matt Malone, a gain of 3 up to 22nd, as Henrik Kamara was 23rd behind him. Malte Schneider was 24th, and Gerard Boldu was 25th. Oye Zamaloa wound up a lap down, did not get to finish the race, had to take it from the pit lane, as Aaron Humphrey was 27th, and then Martin Krajcik and Jesus Cabal were both a DNF today at the back of the GTPs.
In the GTOs, Andreas Schuster takes his first win in 6 seasons in the IMSA Vintage Series, coming just ahead of Noah Lundberg, who is hoping for a bigger points payout today over Yuka Leskola, who's in third. But unfortunately, Leskola performed very well, and Lundberg was unable to secure the win. Doug Cloud able to hang on for 4th position. Bronco Scurry able to cling to a 5th spot after running all the way back in 11th spot early on in the race. Ian Haycox finishes in 6th just behind Bronco Scurry, with Miguel Alcalde having some troubles midway through the race, finishing down in 7th spot, with Escaleta Niemi having troubles early in 8th. Battling it out with Josh Brain over the course of the race. Mickey Friesen down there rounding out your top 10. And then we have drivers who had bad days, Johan Ben Hixie and Kevin Parrish. Emerson Gaudin also finished down in the 13th position, quite a few laps down.
And it looks like we've got someone just outside the podium ready to talk to us here from the GTOs, Doug Cloud, with a bit of a battle early in the race and then kind of fell off onto his own there by the end. So the number 32, unfortunately not able to spray the champagne here in France. But Doug, it seemed like everybody was trying to play that patient game early on. There was quite a train of you in the first half of the race.
Yeah, I was really happy just to be able to keep up with those guys, because the race the other day, I just fell back, and once you lose that lead pack, you're done. But yeah, it was interesting. Nobody wanted to really lead, of course, and when you've got for 4 or 5 cars, I mean, you can save fuel like crazy. So that's what we were all trying to do. And Andreas stayed out there for how long? I don't know. He was probably burning up everything. So yeah, it was interesting.
And obviously, Yuko starting from the back gave everybody a little bit of something to keep an eye on. When he approached you towards the end of the race, did you kind of do a double take?
Well, I saw it. I saw him pop up on the list. And actually, when I started the race, I didn't even see him. I mean, because I guess he didn't qualify. And I thought maybe he took the week off. And then I see him in the relative, and I'm like, oh, here comes Yuko. So, and then promptly right after that, I lost it in Mulsanne and just let him by. But I was able to keep up with him, and that's, to me, like, that's a win right there. If I could keep up with Yuko.
Well, and you snatch yourself a top 5 for this one, so that'll be good points wise, I'm sure, for you in the championship. Are you looking forward to Barber? It's a much smaller track, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, I like Barber. It's not bad for multiclass. There's just a couple of corners that just, what is that, hairpin spoon dip down turn 5. That it's troublesome usually, but I like it. I mean, there's not too many tracks I don't like, but except for Coda. I hate Coda.
Well, I don't think you're going to be alone in that one, judging by the way fans have reacted to that track. But anyways, congratulations on a 4th place.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was Doug Cloud finishing 4th here today. And then in the meantime, we've also got Heitor Sintez Galindo, who finished 9th, with Adam having caught up with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Heitor Sintez Galindo finishing in 9th in the GTPs. Heitor, not necessarily the day you were looking forward to having today, but still a lot of battles you had on track. Talk to me about your day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the same this last week. Sweat, blood, and tears for just a meager P9er. Yeah, far away from when I was winning for. But yeah. Well, it's been this season basically. People are getting really fast, and lots of people driving the Nissan. Today were like 29 cars or something, and it was like, you. Well, yeah. I think I couldn't do much better, to be honest. I think I made a couple of slowdowns, made my way past, and made a top 10 finish. I think it's the best I could have hoped for today. Still disappointed by the numbers, but still satisfied with how much I fought for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, out here at Le Mans, we talked a lot about how the traffic actually can be a real issue because of how few turns there are here. How was the traffic for you today?
Well, the traffic today was too calm compared to most of the weeks we've been in Camel. I mean, next week we're going to Barber, and that's gonna be a very fun race to watch. But yeah, today with 12 hours, not much of a traffic today. Couldn't make my way through the traffic as usual. But yeah, today Le Mans has been it's been quite weird this week with all the high temperatures on track, 97 Fahrenheit something, and had to control the overheating on the tires and stuff. It's been a race of not like managing race, which is not my favorite races. My races are basically green flag, full speed, send. Well, I mean, push all the 40 meters on 60, and that's it. But yeah, it's been weird this week. But yeah, what's done is done, and yeah, looking forward for next week.
Well, Aitor, not the race you were hoping for, but still a top 10. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Absolutely. You guys are as usual for the broadcast, family, friends are watching, and yeah, Camel community as well. So yeah, thanks guys, and see you next week at Barber.
Thank you, Aitor. Aitor Sanchez Gleno finishing in 9th place today in the GTPs.
Which is going to wrap us up. And of course, we can't thank the IMSA Vintage community enough for bringing us back for another season of coverage here on the Global SimRacing Channel. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Brad, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. But don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next race, as we mentioned, going to be at Barber Motorsports Park. That'll be Saturday, January 13th at noon Eastern. And be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.